Welcome to the What's New from Three Ravens Publishing panel. Tonight we are going to go over the upcoming titles that we have. We're going to go over the upcoming titles coming out this year, along with a few things that have just recently been released. And one of the major series that we have going on is the Starflight series, along with the JTF series. We've got 2 or 3 titles coming out in JTF this year, which, since he's going to be like totally brain. My brain is not working tonight. Okay.
Tonight?
As opposed to.
Shut up. I was out there building a chicken coop today. Leave me alone. We're going to start things off with Casey Moops, or Casey Moores. And he's got the Witch Hunt with the JTF universe coming out this year. So go ahead, Casey.
All right. Well, I guess I'll also give the introduction to the JTF 13 universe for those that might be unacquainted. It started, I believe, with a story called Dragon Hunter or something. I don't know. I forget what the original story was, but there was a military unit that basically kills a dragon, and then we created the JTF Origins anthology, JTF 13 Origins anthology. You should go check out. And then Hillbilly there came out with JTF 13 Widowmakers, about a plucky crew of
ground crew.
Plucky ground crew hunting gremlins, through World War II, right after the invasion of Europe. So this is going back to the Origins anthology. It starts in the Revolutionary War, and it has developed over time. My book, Witch Hunt, is tracking the Marines in the Civil War. Who knows what happened to the Marines in the Civil War? Well, everybody thinks that they were just on ships, but this guy, David Sullivan, wrote a whole lot of books about what the Marines were doing over the course of the Civil War. So I've taken some interesting events from things the Marines were doing, and I've discovered that there were some supernatural things going on. There may have been a unit being recreated to deal with said things. So starting with the Battle of Roanoke Island, following through the taking of St. Augustine in Florida, and then wrapping up with the capture of New Orleans. A unit that hadn't existed since the Mexican War is recreated to track down some things that might be threatening the war. They find somebody that appears to be a witch on Roanoke Island, and they track her from there and defeat her dastardly plot to destroy the fleet in New Orleans, if that's not too much spoiler. So you'll meet Lieutenant Green and Sergeant Phillips as they figure out how to put this all back together.
Yeah, Green is badass.
The Witch Hunt, and then JTF 13 as a whole is going to be developing a lot more in the modern era, World War II in the modern era, I think, specifically.
Yeah, and we are going to be dividing the JTF universe out into the JTF Legacy novels, which is going to be everything before a specific date that we haven't decided on yet. And then the more modern stuff will take a different look on the covers and logos and things like that, and we're going to have a separation of them. Which we have 2 other authors on here that are writing in the JTF. Mike and Phil. You want to give a little plug on your stories?
Phil, why don't you start first?
All right. My name is Philip K. Booker, and I have squealing children in the background who are terribly excited about chupacabras. And that's part of what my particular story is going to be dealing with, the rise of the chupacabra in the 90s in Puerto Rico. And the JTF crew member who is visiting kin in on the island at the outbreak, and it's the story is about uncovering what is the true origin of the goat sucker.
Mike.
All right. Mine's a little earlier. I'm doing a techno thriller in 1986 dealing with the 4 S's: submarines, Soviets, stolen technology, and sea monsters. And mine deals with a project by the Soviets to steal some technology from the United States Navy that goes awry in a very bad way up in the Baltic Sea, and a sea creature that nobody expected to be there, and the poor group of Marines who ends up getting hooked up with a group of SEALs and a submarine crew who are trying to deal with it.
All right. And let's see. Eeny, meeny, miny, moe. Okay.
Well,
Katori.
that does it for JTF 13. Do you have any? Do you want to, Hillbilly? Do you want to make any rundown of either Sea Serpent or any of the others we got coming out?
Oh, yeah, I guess I should. Well, Sea Serpent was slated to release here, was it June 15th? But it kind of took a sidebar because the author went in for bypass surgery. So it kind of slowed down the editing process. So as soon as we can get that one up and out, that's when we're kicking off all the new books coming out. Casey's is going to be the next one in line. Mike Nelson is the next one after you, I believe. We've got 5 or 6 already in line, just going through the editing process and getting them set up. And it's a mixture of World War I, World War II, Gulf War era. I mean, we're all over the place on the timelines. Now, Jason Cordova, on the other hand, is writing The Jackals, which is going to be the first modern day set of stories, and it kind of looks like he's got 3 or 4 novels planned right now. And we're going to have this big conglomeration of shit hits the fan, and that's going to be our breaking point for the legacy and the modern day stuff. We just have to lock that down, which Michael Gants is our project manager for the JTF program. But okay, Catori.
Yes. Hey,
We haven't
everyone.
published you yet, but you are in the editing queue.
Yep.
Quick, tell us about yourself and your upcoming story.
Okay, sure. So, yes, hello. My name is Katori Sarmiento. I am an author, an artist, a poet. I've had other books published, in the past. My first debut novel was called The Fortune Follies. It went on to actually win a first place science fiction award in the Chanticleer International Awards. My second novel is called Carnival Panic. And that one has also garnered a lot of attention and won some international awards as well. So I'm kind of heavily into writing kind of sci-fi and cross-genre books at the moment. I always kind of veer into any genre I please, but right now I'm kind of focused on sci-fi. So the novel I have that's with Three Ravens Publishing is called Darkness in a Sky of Embers. And it's a military sci-fi, but you have a little bit cross-genre, I think. You have some kind of Lovecraftian horror themes, some cosmic horror themes in that as well. So the novel follows a teenager, she's about 16 or so, and her name is Madeline Yazzie, or as they call her, Mad Madeline Yazzie. And she joins the Ordnance Corps as part of the military's endeavor to stop an unknown species from taking over the earth. So she is part of the, last remaining military who is trying to defend humanity and trying to uncover the nature of this unknown species who is terraforming the earth, who is transforming humans into something else. And that creature, they're known as the Helgrima. So throughout the novel, she learns more about herself, about what it is to be human, and, what the nature of this other species is and what their purpose is. So that's what I have.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
And welcome aboard.
Yes.
This is actually the first time we've actually got to meet.
I know. I'm quite, yeah. I usually hide out, I'm writing and busy doing this and that. So yeah, kind of a little bit of a recluse, I guess.
I think most authors
Most writers,
They
yeah.
hide in the dark
Yeah.
places.
You gotta, just have to have the blinders on and just focus.
All right, now the next series that we've got coming up is the Starflight series. And anybody that ever played the Starflight game back in the 80s knows what to expect when it comes to sci-fi space opera, and the lack of material within the universe was limited by what the game producers could produce back then. I was lucky enough to land a deal with the IP holder and the original creators to get to write in this amazing universe. It absolutely influenced me on so many levels, and you know, I had a hard time not fanboying while I was on the phone with Greg Johnson talking to him about Starflight, which I fanboyed a few times. But you know, we get to breathe life into something that it was already great to begin with. So we get to flesh it out and bring it to life even bigger. And we have more than a few of the panelists here that are actually in this collection. Well, what is it? My story in it. We have a golden child. We have the silver spoon in the mouth proverbial captain that his dad is actually the liaison between the Arth government and Intrastel. And he's trying to prove himself and make a name for himself outside of what his father can do. Because, you know, his father is always trying to push him here and push him there and things like that. So it's the chaotic. Well, let's see. I don't know. I want to give up too much of it. He struggles hard. How's that? Trying to prove himself to daddy. Let's see. Phil, you're next in line. Just go down the line.
All right. Let's see. My story is called the Black Box Blues, and it features Evan McConnell, who is a bartender and owner of the Black Box Lounge on the Starport Central above Arth, and he has got himself tied up and under the thumb of a low-down, dirty Thrin, who is pressuring him into getting into a side hustle that is going to get him into a world of hurt. And it's a story about how he can dig himself out of that.
Okay. Mike.
My story is called Those Who Came Before, and it deals with the discovery on Arth of the Noah 2 expedition and how that came about, leading eventually to the building of Interstellar and where the rest of the universe will be going. So this actually takes place just before the game starts and just gives a little bit of history on everything that led up to this.
Okay. All right. And Dave.
I wrote a short story called Everyone Gets What They Have Coming, which is a little bit sort of inside out of the game. It's mostly sort of things that you don't see happening on the game, or kind of making fun of and deconstructing the game a little bit. So, for example, the way you train your crew, you take them, you walk them into operations or personnel, right? And you pay money, and then they walk out with more skill. So there's this debate between two of the characters over, they're clearly not actually training. So what are they doing? Are they having some kind of neural upload, or actually, while they're being trained, are restrictions on the operating parameters of the ship being improved? So they feel like they're better pilots, but actually the ship is just better. But it's about scum betraying each other for money, and everyone getting what they have coming in the end.
And, you know, one thing that kept popping into my mind is, like, you know, Woody Harrelson from 2012, you know, that just batshit crazy conspiracy theorist. I was loving the feel that you had in there with your guy, especially right there at the beginning, talking about the training sequences. I was just like, what the hell am I reading here? I love it. Let's see. Michael J. Allen.
Well, since Hillbilly, and I'm not saying that there was alcohol involved, but managed to lose our last version of this, I'm going to go ahead and do my introduction once more. I'm Michael J. Allen, Star Lord and author of science fiction and fantasy. So I've also been playing Starflight for ever since the first one came up, and I wasted so many hours in the old game back in my early teens that I was extremely excited when Hillbilly approached me about doing this project. One of the things that I wanted to do with this project is I wanted to investigate and really explore one of the elements in the game that was just absolutely frustrating. And that was that the terrain rover, when it ran out of power, you couldn't go back and reclaim it, even if it ran out of power right there on your starship. Didn't matter if you had the coordinates, you couldn't go back to it and get anything out of it except the flat device. The thing was gone and nobody explained why. So rover rescue involves a rather impulsive engineer who's forced to make a deal with a criminal syndicate in order to try and go back and get a rover that he accidentally loses. In the process, he ends up having to make a deal with a crazy cat lady xenobiologist who actually has a ship, and a zealot cyborg robot rebellion religious leader, very similar to the street preacher from Johnny Mnemonic, who lets him build a split personality preacher slash 1950s telephone operator robot so that he can go back and get the rover. From there, it just goes nuts. So it's a lot of fun. And I wouldn't like to say that Dave's and Chris Woods' stories were both awesome, absolutely fantastic. I haven't had a chance to read the others, but those two were definitely top shelf.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Now, out of all the stories, I mean, Michael J. Allen, yours, it was like something that Heinlein or Arthur C. Clarke or one of them would have written. I mean, it was in that same vein of sci-fi, and it's like it just the feel of it, you know. And I loved it. That was probably my favorite story out of the whole thing, especially with the street preacher, because that was just like, wait, what are we doing now? You know, it was a side tangent out of nowhere, and then the way that you explained the rovers, it makes so much sense, even though it wasn't ever touched on in the original game. Let's see. Okay, Woods, you've got a story in that.
Yep, I finally got here. I was a little bit late showing up.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No excuse.
My story in Starflight Anthology is about a crew that are coming in from a mission. They've got full cargo holds. They're actually pretty flush right now. And they get to Starport and they meet a guy who's having troubles. And he was the guy they went to that the captain went to the academy with. So he decided he would try to help him out. And it goes downhill from there because the guy is actually a smuggler and a pirate. And he ends up giving them an illegal cargo, which they have to make a choice as to whether to be good guys or bad guys at that point. And, well, you know, I like good guys. So so then they have this, the conflict is between the Elawan and the Wren. You know, none of them like each other. So basically they have to make a choice of which race they're going to help.
Are you done? You just kind of cut off,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah, well, I don't want to go too far into it. I don't want to tell them the whole story.
Okay. Well, we
You
have
got to let them buy the book.
True. We've got more than a few members that aren't here that have written stories into the Starflight universe. One of them was R.J. Ladon, who just recently, her first novel, Bloodstone, Written in Stone, was released. She is not here, and we're going to like pan over to a little video segment of her recorded because her internet sucks, but we love her anyways.
Hello from Wisconsin. My name is RJ Ladon, and I wrote a short story called Hindsight for the Starflight anthology. In my story, I have a young rich kid. He's in his 20s. His name is Sarat, and he decided that he would take his father died, and he received an inheritance, and he takes this money and buys a ship called the Hindsight, thus the name of the story. And he decides to hire a bunch of aliens and some humans to help him with his crew. And his first mission, he finds a fellow by the name of Ed, and Ed is an old navigation officer. And Ed has some tales to tell about things he found as a navigation officer. And one of those is a derelict spaceship, which he swears is alien and hundreds of years old, and that the tech alone would be worth millions. So they come up with a plan to steal or take this ship. They can't steal it. But when they find the ship, they discover that it's in worse shape than they thought, and it's inhabited. There are aliens on that ship that need help, but they don't know it. So what's a captain who's never been a captain before to do? This is Sarat's story, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you buy the Starflight anthology. You can find my other work in Shada series through Copper Dog. I've also written a novel called Bloodstone. The audio is available and the book is available through Amazon. It's a urban fantasy about 2 high school students and a gargoyle of all things. I am also working on the second book in the Bloodstone series called The Wolf Arises, and that should be out before the end of this year or in the early next year. And I'm also working on the very first story of a trilogy. It may end up being 4 books of a high fantasy series. And at the moment, we're calling it the Akumon Chronicles. That could change. More to come. Thank you. Again, this is RJ Ladon.
And now we're back. And okay, cool. There. See, look, magic. And let's see. Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Moe. Who's next? Hanson.
Yes. By way of introduction, my name is Michael H. Hanson. I'm a short story writer and a poet. I am the creator of the Shada Tales of the Apocalypse. Okay, this apparently is not showing up very well. Blending into the background. The Shada series is currently 7 volumes long with another 3 in the works. And as I said, it's a shared world universe. I've also put out 6 collections of poetry. But to get to Three Ravens Publishing, I'd like to talk about 2 things they published for me and 1 we're working on. The first is a collection of poetry titled Android Girl. Once again, this doesn't seem to be showing up very well.
You're going to have to turn off your background.
Okay, I'm afraid that might take forever. So I'll just go right into the next book. And my chapbook of poetry called Quarantine World. And I'm currently working on, with my brother Wayne Hanson, we were working on 3 novellas that Scott has discussed with me, and we basically decided we're going to put them all together in 1 book. It'll be like a novella anthology called Cobalt Blue. And it's, young adult YA and a bit of a space opera. And, I really look forward to getting that wrapped up and seeing that in print. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun working with Three Ravens, and I look forward to the future.
All right, just because she is so nervous. Wait, why you give me the evil eye? What was that? What was that head cock thing? All right, so Jenny Wren, introduce yourself, please.
You hate me. That's all. You hate me.
Nah, you love me. It's all good.
I forgot what I was going to say. I'm Jenny Rennicker. I am, well, I've known Scott for way too long and owe him too many cups of coffee. I've actually only, let's see, I've got been published officially twice. Once is Take Me to Your Reader, and the other is around here somewhere. It's the Gears and Gallantry Corner Scribblers collection.
Yep.
I'm
Bill's got a
currently
copy.
working on a, right now it's a novella because I've just hit 35,000 words. It's my first one that I've put together or worked on that's almost ready to be sent for being bled on, maybe. It's a brand new world, brand new universe. It's kind of got a little bit of Sterling with some James P. Blaylock, because I've got some steampunk feel going through there, with a little bit of Lackey and McCaffrey in there, if you can put all those together and kind of get a really funky cake. It's a different planet. It's got an elite group of, well, I'll just call them people for right now, who go around, and the first one has a mystery of transports. There are these transports that go all across the continent, and they carry people and goods and supplies and ore and that kind of thing, and they're going missing, and nobody knows why they're going missing. There's a rat terrier coming to say hi. There's an evil on the planet that throughout the whole thing is referred to as them or they, and everybody, when they hear they mentioned, shudder. Even the most seasoned and stoic of characters, you mention, well, maybe they're going to get you, they just kind of shiver. And that's a bit of a Lovecraftian thing that I thought I'd bring in, because who doesn't like Lovecraft? So the first one is really introducing the characters in the world and the universe and the guidelines, and figuring out this mystery of what's happening to these transports, what's happening to these people, and who is they, and what are they going to do to get them. It's still, I think I'm kind of working on the last couple of chapters of it, and then I'm going to give it another read through and then send it to Scott and see how much blood it gets. So brand new to the party, having fun, even when Scott hates me and drags me out of my corner, because I'm also a recluse. I like corners and caves.
It's good for you. It builds character.
Yeah, you're a corner scribbler.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And
Corner scribblers.
I just realized something. We're really heavy on the Michaels. We're collecting Michaels. It's like we need trading cards now or something. Might have to do that. Okay.
What's the problem with Michaels?
Oh, nothing. It's just like we got 4 of them sitting right here. We need trading cards now. So I have to talk. Huh?
This one's a Michael, too.
Speaking
Wait.
as a Michael, there's a lot wrong with us.
You're a Michael too? What the hell?
Yes, I am. Christopher Michael.
All right, so off to the next
I'm
Michael.
seeing an anthology in the future.
We might do that. All right, so speaking of the next Michael K. Falciani, right? That's how you say that one?
Oh, it's Falciani.
Falciani. Okay, see?
All right. Okay, so yeah, my actual name is not Michael. That's my pen name, but I'm going to claim it anyways. My name is Michael K. Falciani. I've actually been a teacher for the last 22 years. I'm just finishing my 22nd year. And Three Ravens has agreed to publish my novel, which I believe will be out in the next month or two. I've written a big fantasy novel for adults. I know most of you are sci-fi writers. I'm probably not going to be joining that fold right away. But this story is called The Raven and the Crow, Dark Storm Rising. It really follows 2 different storylines that kind of move simultaneously. The storyline talks about 2 brothers. They're trying to find their place in the world. They're pretty young. They have had quite a bit to deal with. They were quite benevolent at one time. The older brother, Kildare, was governed by morality. Now he kind of lets his sword mete out justice as he sees fit. He doesn't really worry about rules of society anymore. The younger brother, Zidane, who's no mean warrior in his own right, is kind of the only thing keeping the 2 of them from going crazy and really letting loose the way they want to. they're kind of swords for hire, and in their latest escapade, they have been hired by a sage named Blade, and throughout their escapade for her, they run across a tribeswoman who has extraordinary psychic powers. And she also carries a secret that will not only change her fate, but the fate of the two brothers as well. In the storyline, we have a very powerful wizard named McClure. He's been dispatched by the king of Brisbane, which is kind of an up-and-coming city and country. And he's been dispatched because there is a bloody succession going on in one of the older cities nearby named Galens. And he meets the princess of Galens, and we're kind of smitten with one another. And he decides to disobey the orders from the king, and he throws his hat into this bloody succession. And he's quickly marked for death by a cult of evil who, of course, have their own candidate they'd like to put on the throne. So using his magical powers and his own wits, he has to keep everybody alive and himself, as well as keeping the other folks off of the throne. Racing towards this city are Kildare and Zidane. They're kind of stuck between, do they want to help this guy McClure, who is responsible for their betrayal, or do they want to just kind of let it? That's what The Raven and the Crow, Darkstorm is about.
And, I initially went through listening to it on one of the text-to-voice readers. And that's how I got through the initial bit of it. And it was already a good story. Reading through the actual text, you get so much more of the emotion that's in the story. And it's just, you've got me sucked in already.
Thank you.
I'm 10 chapters in. I'm like, okay, I got to find out what the hell happens here. Because even though I've listened to the whole thing, it's like a whole other story versus listening through it on that thing. There's no life on that. It's just raw listen. So our next victim has a title coming out June 1st. And we have been whoring him all over England and Ireland and anywhere else that we could possibly send stuff to.
It's true.
John,
that would be me. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm the token non-North American and token comedian on the panel, I think. Before we get to Zoomers, I'll just quickly run through 3 titles. First one, which is the first book I wrote, is Making Man, which is a comedy about a Neanderthal engineer. And that subject matter was chosen purely because I didn't know of any caveman comedy that was out there already. So I started that, wrote that. It's a story of I'll say like an inventor, a caveman inventor, and his tribe don't see the value of his inventions, and he decides that there must be kind of more like-minded souls out there. So he goes on a wander, a little bit Hobbitish, where it's a bit of a there and back again. But he meets the Cro-Magnons, so he meets modern man effectively, and they all speak with a very toffee-nosed English accent, and they're all called Pingo and Campbell, and it's yes, rather yes, this is marvelous. But they're all hugely incompetent and they can't do anything, so they really take to Cobble, the main character, who's the engineer, and there isn't an awful lot more I can say about that without chucking huge spoilers. But anyway, that's Making Man in a nutshell. The second one is Cheating Death, which is a Black Death comedy, famously jovial period of medieval European history. So this is set during the Black Death, and it's a story of, it's kind of 3 strands that are all kind of centering in or zeroing in on Avignon, which is the papal seat at the time, one of the papal seats. And one of the characters, it's really the main character is a Sicilian conman who goes to Genoa to try and extort the Doge of Genoa out of a huge amount of wealth with a fake story about a plague, which obviously turns out to be true, but he doesn't know that at the time. So he gets sent to Avignon by the Doge, and coming from Germany or what's now Germany, is a character called Hildegund, who is trying to avenge her brother's death. Her brother was a flagellist, so to avenge. It's funnier than it sounds, by the way. To avenge his death, she travels to Avignon to assassinate the Pope. And then, meanwhile, in England, there's a guy who is wrongly accused of murdering the parish priest, which he didn't do. He gets sent on a pilgrimage to Avignon to repent for his sins, and he meets a fellow pilgrim called Robert, who is actually just somebody who doesn't really like his wife and kids, and so loves being sent on these pilgrimages for 6 months all the way to Avignon. So he's always like standing up in the middle of mass and saying something he shouldn't be saying, so that the priest will send him off to go on a 6-month pilgrimage. So he's like a serial pilgrim, and they end up on a kind of a debauched trail down to Avignon, and they end up just as drunkards, like student drunkards, arriving at the papal palace. And then you have the Pope, who is one of the characters in the book, and he ends up, through various mechanisms, he does things like he's never been shopping before because he's the Pope, so he gets disguised and goes shopping. And anyone who was listening to my staccato performance on Friday would have heard pockets of that. But so anyway, that's how it all happens, and then there's a big crescendo where they may or may not assassinate the Pope, and that's cheating death. And then the last released one is Killing Chance, which is Genghis Khan. It's a parody almost, really. So that's a story of Genghis Khan, who obviously famously fathered huge numbers of people, and his DNA is spread right through Europe and so on. So I made it that he didn't have an heir. So he's trying to search for an heir, and one pops up, and he's trying to find out who it is and get them back and so on. But he has a human resources manager, which actually was the start of the thought of the book, was just giving Genghis Khan a human resources manager was just too funny not to do. So anyway, they get sent to the wrong side of an ancient Chinese city, and it's all about Genghis going in and trying to get his the heir to the Khanate back. That one, anyway, that one's very, very much more like a parody. Like they've all got silly names, and the I'll do your favorite one, probably Hillbilly, which is the captain of the ballistics regiment in the Mongol army is called Captain Wee, but it's Wee with 5 E's, so it's Captain Wee. So it's like it's not high literature. It's just funny slapstick.
That's one of the best parts of your writing is you're like as good or better than Douglas Adams. I've told you that for years. I've loved your stuff because of that. And the naming conventions and little things like that, and the little quips that you've got in there, and then you go into those little vignettes off to the side.
Oh yeah.
The bricks in the walls, and killing Chance was just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. So I have So I do for anyone who hasn't read them. There's throughout all of those books, there's little vignettes where, say in Making Man, where it's all just Neanderthals, and the only things there really are trees and mountains and plains and things. So I put in little vignettes of like insects talking to each other, but they always ended up dying by the end of their little 100-word scene or whatever. So I just think that they're nice little things to pop in there. But yeah, the bricks in the city wall. Yeah, look, I'll let the reader decide. But yeah, that was fun to do. But, like Killing Chance was so much fun to write. Just
to the next
messing about with the names. Sorry, yes, I'm going on. So the next one, so June the 1st is my first foray into science fiction. So I was bugged long enough and often enough to write science fiction. So I've gone with Zoomers, which was titled before COVID. I think it's important to say. So it's not a story about people doing lots of video calls like ourselves. It's actually set on the planet Arcadia, and they discovered that life is ending on too many planets for it not to be a problem. And so they developed a technology to zoom or to travel in time and space to wherever they like, to try and establish what's causing all life to end on all of these planets. But they decide that they don't have the right perspective on it, so they need to get somebody in who has no idea that any of this is happening. So they decide to extract somebody from Earth, from Southend in England, which is where they all talk a bit like that, So they extract a burglar, a common thief, to go in to find out why life is ending on all the planets. So, but in doing so, they accidentally bring 3 more humans with them, and they weren't intended to be there. So one of them, the other kind of main character really, is a stuffy middle-class, middle-aged Englishman called Mr. Raisbeck, who likes to be called Mr. Raisbeck and not by his first name. And all he seems to be concerned about when he first arrives on the alien planet is that he was supposed to be in his house for a sofa delivery between 8 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon, and he's now going to miss his slot, and that's all he can focus on. And he's just not, he can't picture the fact that, hang on, I'm on another planet and another time. So anyway, they go off and they have all kinds of capers trying to almost quantum leap-esque, really trying to get back home a little bit and trying to save the universe. And it's quirky and it's silly and it's brilliant fun to write, and it's out on the 1st of June.
Okay. And well, I guess that J.F.Posthumus isn't showing up. A couple other titles that we have coming out from Three Ravens here in the very near future. Taking the Night, the first of the Nightshade series. It is an urban fantasy series that is really damn good, and anybody that likes good old-fashioned urban fantasy with lots of magic and a good dousing of romance tossed in, you're going to love this one coming up. Another one that she has coming up is The Journey, which is the first novella within the Catori universe. And from there, we have an open call for the Catori anthology due December 31st. You can find information on that on the Three Ravens website. We also have It Came from the Trailer Park coming out Halloween this year. Have a number of our authors here that have stories in it. Oh, wait. We have Jenny coming in now, finally. So far, it looks like we may have an introduction by a very famous urban fantasy author that I won't mention yet because I don't have it in hand. But we also have a slight essay on the passion of horror from a Hollywood actor that's still yet to come in, so I won't mention it yet. But it's going to be interesting. We have some good stuff working on that one. So, Jenny, better late than never. You want to give a plug on some of the stuff that you got coming up real quick?
Sure. I have a short story coming out that's high fantasy titled The Journey. It's kind of the backstory, origin story for one of the characters that will show up later in other novels. Hopefully it'll show up in later novels that I can get written. And then I have a new urban fantasy series coming out this summer. It's the Nightshade series, and it's about Celia, who is the daughter of a mafia underboss, adopted daughter, which comes into play later. And basically her adopted father she's tricked into stealing some data from a rival family. And when she goes through her adopted father, he ends up almost murdered in an attempted coup. She gets sent to a safe house and ends up having to team up with the city's vigilante in the hopes of reclaiming that stolen data so she can return it to the rival family to bring peace back to the city. Except there's someone else pulling the strings. So she has to, figure out how to keep her family from figuring out she's the one involved with the whole thing, because she's supposed to be staying out of it. So it's a fun mystery. There's a lot of violence because it's kind of superhero-ish and urban fantasy, and hopefully it turns out that people will like it. And I really suck at this.
All right. What? Everybody's... Yeah. Stupid chat. Okay, going around the table, quick outro. Where can we find your stuff and anything new that you have coming up here in the very near future? And yes, you did very good, Jenny. Don't worry about it. Both Jennies did very good, even though you think that your voice sucked, Jenny Wren. Okay, Jenny, anything else that you got coming up, and how do we find you?
Me?
Yes.
Okay. You can find me at J.F.Posthumus.net. You can find me at Three Ravens Publishing website, and I'm also on Facebook under author J.F. Posthumus.
Woods. Oh wait, no, we can skip you.
Why you want to skip me?
Just cause. I mean, you know, you're that hack author, man.
Well, the hack author still has a website. You can find my stuff at theprofessionalliar.com. I don't have anything new coming out right now, but I had a book come out in January and a book come out in February.
Okay.
Yes. Theprofessionalliar.com.
Okay. Jenny Wren.
Who was on mute? You know, now there are almost as many Jennies as there are Michaels.
I know. We're getting there.
Except we're the elite version of the collection. Four of us, higher value, supply and demand.
Come on.
Yeah. Everything that I've got so far and everything that I've got coming out, strictly Three Ravens. I mean, that's all there is to it. My corner involves all things social media as well. So there you go.
Okay. Michael J. Allen.
Well, you can find me and what titles I've got out at deliriousscribbles.com. I just put the finishing touches and released the last of my urban fantasy quintology, Blood Phoenix Chronicles. And I've got Guns of Underhill 2, the sequel to my Western epic fantasy coming out from another publisher, which I won't mention on this publisher's panel, but the new book is Metal Kingdom. And lastly, I've got a semi-secret project going on I can't talk about that's going to expand my sci-fi catalog.
John Drake.
Okay, you can find me at John Drake Writer on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook at author John Drake, and a cheap, shameless plug for my proofreading and editing service business, which is cobblestones.ie. That's me.
Dave.
I have recently withdrawn from the evil festering cesspits of both Facebook and Twitter. I am on MeWe if you want to find me in social media. My website's davidjohnbutler.com. You can reach me through that. The next novel I have coming out is actually a mass market paperback in the Palace of Shadow and Joy, which is kind of a Fawford and the Grey Mouser meets Double Indemnity in the Mos Eisley Cantina. It's about insurance fraud and an epic poet and a would-be financier who are forced to make a living as thugs.
You mean that one?
That one, but the small one will come out in like July.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
I'm about halfway through. I haven't finished it, but I'm loving this.
Oh, cool. Thanks, man.
Okay, so next on the list is Fountain. Michael K. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. I was wondering which one you were talking about.
Falciani. There we go. I got it right.
You can find me on michaelkfalciani.com. I'm on Facebook as Michael K. Falciani. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. And my next stuff coming out is The Raven and the Crow, The Gray Throne, which is book 2. I have a story that I'm working with J.F.Posthumus on that should be out whenever I finish with my newest Dwarven story, which is also coming out. I have a short story out for your urban fantasy, horror fantasy as well that I've sent in, and I haven't heard back. I know I'm busy. So.
Been a little busy. We'll get to it.
I know you are.
Okay, Gants.
Next book I've got coming out is Wave Song, which will be in the JTF 13. You can find me on Facebook at Michael Gants. And really, that's about it for me right now.
All right, Phil.
Well, you can find me on Facebook, Philip K. Booker. And I've got about a half dozen or so projects in the works, most of them being through Three Ravens Press. So you can find us through the Corner Scribblers subdivision, as well as the Starflight piece. Of course, we've got that coming out. And like I said, about 3 or 4 different novels currently in the works. So it's slow going right now, but hopefully very shortly you'll see a lot of material from me.
Wait, hey Phil, where's my book?
Yeah, there you go.
I ain't picked on you today. Where's my damn novel? All right, Hanson.
Okay, you can find me on Facebook as Michael H. Hanson, Hanson. You can also find me at copperdogpublishing.com. I'm one of the co-owners of the small press. We recently put out Shadah's Zombie Park, and we put out a science fiction novel by Edward McEwen called Legacies. And of course, you can find me at Three Ravens Publishing, where I can now display 2 poetry books that they put out. Let's see if I can sort of get them up there. And that's it.
Katori.
Yes. So you can find me at www.katorisarmiento.com. It's an easy way. Or just punch my name into Google, Katori Sarmiento. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Goodreads, I'm on Amazon. So yeah, definitely out there.
And I'm William Joseph Roberts, head of Three Ravens. You can find me at williamjosephroberts.com, pretty much any freaking social media platform there is, because I'm on just about every one of them, and at threeravenspublishing.com. Thank you all for tuning in. Go sign up, like, follow, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and keep an eye on things to come.